Gretchen Gagel is president and CEO of Greatness Consulting. She's began her consulting career in 1994 with FMI Corporation. That's where she and I think, originally connected many years ago. That's a Raleigh, North Carolina-based management consulting and investment banking firm that's focused on the construction industry. She's a recognized expert in the construction industry, consulting to both owners on strategies and tactics to optimize project and program delivery, and consulting to contractors, engineering firms, material and equipment suppliers on how to effectively serve their clients. She's going to share with us an intriguing survey that she's undertaken. And Gretchen, it's always good to see you. Back from Australia, I think. Let's give Gretchen a welcome to the stage. Gretchen Gagel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm going to use the same joke I used 2 years ago because it still works. If you stick around, I will buy you a drink. Okay? Drinks are on Greg. But it's interesting because I was thinking about this, kind of being in this speaking slot, how much the study is going to reinforce everything that you've been hearing this week. And as Greg alluded to, I split my time between the United States and Australia. And when I was here delivering this study 2 years ago, and it's interesting, Greg, listening to that bio, I've kind of morphing from consulting into more sitting on boards. I'm chair of the board of Brinkman Construction. I'm on the risk committee for GHD Engineering globally. But 2 years ago when I came here, this is the beach I'd been sitting on in Australia. I don't know if everyone knows, we have 10,600 beaches. And I had this theme that I brought in 22 about big rocks in the jar. And you know this concept, right? If you fill your jar with little rocks and sand first, you can't get the big priorities in. We are the leaders of this industry. We are the people that need to be focused on the big priorities. You're going to walk away from this conference and you're going to be bombarded by all the things that have been happening while you've been gone, right? How are we as the leaders thinking about the priorities? Okay, well, this is the beach I was sitting on 3 weeks ago in Australia. That's another hint for you. The entire country takes the first 2 weeks of January off. You can't get anything done in Australia. It's the summer, right? I've decided if you can't beat them, join them. I'm going to go to the beach for the first 2 weeks of January. But I started thinking about Indiana Jones and this classic scene from this movie, right? These things are coming. Artificial intelligence is coming. Sustainability is coming. Legislation around carbon footprint, it's coming. We can't outrun it, right? So this is my theme for today. We chose 3 themes for the study this year: artificial intelligence, sustainability, and inclusion. And what I do is I interview 40 global leaders on this topic, people like Julia with the GSA and Jim retired from Microsoft. And I actually expanded this 2 years ago, and I now interview contractors and engineering firms. So this is what your peers have to say on these 3 topics. So artificial intelligence. We have some audience polls. So if you pull up, I'm going to give you permission to look at your phone. If you pull up this session, there's actually a poll in there. So I need everybody to find your CURT app, 2024 Owner Trends Study. I've got 4 questions for you throughout my remarks today. How well is our industry leveraging artificial intelligence? How well is our industry leveraging artificial intelligence? And I think Palmer says we're going to be able to see the results in the app. How well is our industry, 1 being low and 4 being high? How well are we leveraging artificial intelligence? And now he's shaking his head no. I can tell you what the study said. Oh, you can? What did we get? Pardon? 82% low. Well, there you go. And the people I interviewed gave it a 1.6. So those 40 people overall rated it a 1.6. But here's what they had to say about the current state of AI. There is a lot of reluctance. Everyone wants to see someone else do it first. I was actually born in Missouri. What do we call Missouri? Show me state. I call the construction industry the show me industry. You want to see 100 people do it before we'll do it. I'm seeing some cool things presented at conferences. Boy, Barry and Jamie, are you in here, Barry and Jamie? Loved that presentation on artificial intelligence today, but I'm not sure these ideas are being adopted. There are very few examples. This is not something our industry is rapidly adopting. There are pockets doing well, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. Clients aren't willing to pay for it on their projects. This is a reoccurring theme you're going to hear from me. If the owner isn't asking for it and the owner isn't willing to pay for it, we're not doing it. We're seeing challenges even using iPads on sites. That one made me sad. Really, we haven't gotten to the point where we can use iPads on site. So here's some future opportunities that were identified. Analyzing safety data and job site pictures to predict unsafe behaviors and identify risks, going from proactive to predictive for project schedules and productivity, leveraging the intersection of digital twins and big data for design optimization and asset management, using geospatial AI for transportation and infrastructure planning, optimizing contracts and delivery methods, leveraging AI in coordination and clash detection. We have a database of information. These are quotes from your peers. We have a database of information for thousands of projects. We need to be better at harnessing that information. In that AI presentation, they talked about having 500,000 of a certain piece of information. What do we do with that? The more cutting edge, this is a really interesting one. The more cutting edge contractors are using AI in everything from finance to IT. Some are leveraging tech startups to gain an advantage. On the facilities side, there are so many things AI can do, around the effectiveness of facilities. I have to believe that if a contractor took their estimate and built a schedule, that AI could optimize the schedule, level the craft workforce, forecast estimates to complete. And I think this is a really interesting comment, this last one. How do we overcome lack of trust and transparency around information? And those that are educated and experienced see it as a breath of fresh air versus what is this setting us up for? So thoughts on artificial intelligence. So I started thinking about this. I thought, well, I've been doing this study since the 90s. You guys hear me every other year or so talking about this. I thought I'd bring a friend. So this is somebody I've known for over a decade. He was one of the first employees of Google. I reached out to him and I described all of you, very flattering way, and said, Ted, what do you have to say to this audience about artificial intelligence? And I think a video is actually going to play now. Or not.
Hello, Gretchen. Hello, everyone. My name is Ted Suter, and I am thrilled to be joining the CURT conference this year. I was fortunate to be one of Google's earliest employees, and I spent over 20 years there working with some of the biggest brands in the world on their often challenging digital transformation efforts. I've had countless conversations with business leaders such as yourselves about how maybe we're not ready, or I'm not technical, whatever that means, or worse, we've been doing the same thing for 100 years and everything's working just great. Well, I can say with complete confidence that the AI revolution that is happening right now is going to make the last 20 years pale in comparison. Now, I can understand some pushback. People would say, well, we're in construction, we build buildings. You know what? There are smart people working on AI solutions as we speak. A friend of mine has a company called Foresight.ai that has an AI vision that's cloud-based and camera agnostic that is able to look over a work site and give you countless data points that you're then able to analyze, make for a safer environment, whatever it is that you're trying to do on the work site there, the data will help you. The opportunities like that are going to keep coming and coming and coming. So you, as business leaders, need to understand that now is the time to start embracing AI and digital as a baseline. So really quickly, what are 5 things that you can do tomorrow to be more effective and efficient and embrace AI? The first is to change and embrace digital mindset, to say that yes, we are going to be an AI-first organization that we are ready and we're going to do whatever it takes to be an industry leader. Number two is that you need to deputize a group of individuals, possibly up-and-coming leaders in the organization, who can go around and audit all of the different departments, all of the different employees, and understand where's the friction in the organization. Because you want to collect this data so that you can put together a plan that will help you move from friction to fluidity. Number three is understand that you don't need to do this alone. Every single one of you has a local tech incubator, local economic boards, et cetera, where there are smart people working on solutions that might be applicable to your organization. Let's seek those out and let's learn. Number four is going back to the organization and in full transparency, telling everyone, here's what we're committed to, here's what we've found, here are some partners who might be able to help us, and then five, we're going to develop a new strategy and vision for the future. That simple five-step framework is very basic, but it's a great way to start to figure out how do we embrace what many people say is a superpower sidekick sitting right next door to us. I wish you all the best. I can't wait to hear about the examples and the partnerships that are built over the coming year, and this is going to be the best year of business yet. Thank you and have a great conference.
All right, he's awesome, isn't he? Got a little bit of enthusiasm about digital transformation. He was employee 300 at Google, and as I said, I've known him for a decade. He's really a great person. If you want to hear more from Ted, he's actually been on my podcast. You can find my podcast by putting my name, Gretchen Gagel, Gagel, like a bagel, into Spotify with the word greatness. And yeah, he did a great podcast. All right, I also asked, just out of curiosity, are you using ChatGPT? And so this is another poll in your audience poll. It's a yes or no. Am I using 50-50? Wow, 50-50. Some of you are using it, some of you aren't. I got these kinds of answers. Our system won't allow it. Can't afford for it to make mistakes during the learning curve. Using it a little bit, but there's fear of the unknown. We're using our own proprietary system, which in our AI session today, they highly recommended. Take information out of ChatGPT. Don't put information in it. That was the advice from Barry and Jamie today. And we're using it for marketing, finance, multiple applications. So once again, we have the whole spectrum. Remember when we were all afraid of the internet? Well, some of you are too young to know we were afraid of the internet, but we were. And then we were afraid of the cloud, right? Let's not be afraid of artificial intelligence. It's coming. You cannot outrun artificial intelligence. Where is your firm going to be as far as a competitive advantage in leveraging artificial intelligence? Jim's over here nodding. Thank you, Jim. Sustainability. So we just heard about this. How well is our industry focusing upon sustainability? 1 being low, 4 being high. Another audience poll if you haven't filled it out. By the way, I take the audience poll, I work it into the study, and then I produce a report in about 4 weeks. If you link into me, please do link into me. You can send me a message and I'll send you a copy of the report. How well is our industry focusing on sustainability? Oh, 2% high. Okay, well, we've got some room for improvement there. The people I interviewed gave it a 2.3. Key thoughts that came out of the study. Sustainability is now on the radar and integrated, as there are a lot of drivers for this. Awareness is kicking in. We heard about ESG in publicly traded companies. It's on the low end, but it's going to pick up significantly, and I believe that. ESG pulls it together, really measuring it in an objective way so we can continue to improve. High score on focusing on it, but not on what we're really doing. So we're talking about it a lot, but what are we really doing? There are mixed results. We need the contractors to bring in more ideas. This was an owner talking about this. European counterparts, so this was just mentioned during the panel, are light years ahead of us, and we need to prepare ourselves for EU legislation and what can come here. I fully agree with that thought. We need to focus on the diversity and inclusion of the workforce and that our industry isn't sustainable. So that was another comment about sustainability. A lot of comments about construction materials. There's more focus on materials. We have a game plan for project waste to go to zero landfill. Then someone else saying we waste a lot of resources because we are not planning our work and managing our resources effectively. Recycling is something we try to do, but people aren't educated. There's no incentive for the subcontractors. We still send a lot to the landfill and have to have a different mindset. Here, this was a quote from someone. Here's a silly idea. What if someone just went around and collected all of the waste from projects and generated a strong, well-defined listing and made it available to the marketplace? Interesting. So our challenges. Most owners have huge sustainability commitments, but it's not coming through to the actual capital projects. It's a dirty little secret. The struggle in construction is that we rarely do things together. We have different companies moving at different speeds with different agendas and no industry standardized platform. 20 years ago in safety, we developed a standardized measurement we can understand and improve. We're still reactive to the dollar sign of the client. I think that's something for the owners in the room to really think about, how you drive change in our industry. We are trying, but money is always going to get in the way. It's nice to have sustainable energy, but desalination plants cost more. We want good things cost more. There's lots of talk about carbon capture, how you're counting it for construction versus final solution. Customers are getting more sophisticated, and we are investing more in it because there are more expectations. You just heard about that on that panel. I am disillusioned with lead box checking. There are a couple of things we have to do as a baseline, but we are rarely innovative. So, what should our focus be on? I asked. Probably the most important thing is to proactively work with people that are writing policies, laws, articles, to ensure we're talking about the facts, spend more time with professors, politicians, local and state authorities. Because the legislation is going to come, so how are we influencing that, right? Procurement teams need to understand the vendors that are improving their carbon footprint, choose the greener company. We just heard about this. Some clients want that information. We need to focus on water, making sure we're doing our part to minimize use and keeping things out of stormwater rivers and lakes. We need to look at materials end to end, how far things travel, and more focus on recycling. We need to focus on net carbon at a project level. Owners are going to start to push that because of state and federal regulations. Once again, these are your peers saying this. Focus on the sustainability of our industry and workforce development. So another comment on that. I asked someone, I heard this term, I was in Helsinki in June, watching a panel on sustainability, and I heard a new term called green hushing. You know, we've talked about greenwashing, where you say you're doing green things and you don't really do them. But green hushing, executives don't really think their green ESG plans are actionable, so they're keeping more quiet about them, which kind of makes me sad. And so I asked, and they said, are the big goals actionable? Yes, but it's because of a mindset of possibility. If it's important, smart people will rally around it and make it happen, be willing to go through the pain of investments. That was your question, Greg. Why did Walbridge embark on this journey, right? But we're smart people. We can figure out these problems. It has to be a priority. And Indiana Jones running away from that big, what is that? It's not really a rock. It's a big round orb kind of thing, isn't it? But how will you be in the hero? What are your organization's priorities when it comes to sustainability? All right, on to inclusion. So in 2022, this is a 2022 chart that I shared, we gave it an overall score of a 1.85 on how well are we doing at improving the diversity of our industry. So this is this year's audience poll. How inclusive is the construction industry? How inclusive is the construction industry, 1 being low, 4 being high?
Gretchen, 36 have said okay. 35 have said it's low. 28 said pretty good, and only 1% said high.
Wow, 1% high. So the people I interviewed gave it a 2.1. So we're up a little bit from the 1.85 of 2 years ago, right? And some great comments. But I start with a definition of what is inclusion. And I just grabbed this off the internet. You can Google it. There's 1,000 different definitions of what it means to be inclusive. providing equal access to opportunities and resources to people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those who have physical or intellectual disabilities and members of other minority groups. I got a lot of comments about the progress we're making, and I actually agree with a lot of them. There's a strong desire and push for inclusion. We are getting there. A lot of really good progress, huge transition since the 80s. I started out, I'm going to date myself here, as an engineering intern for Lone Star Gas in 1983. So yes, I would agree we've made some huge progress. Making huge strides, 3 for effort, and on the cusp of a breakthrough. We are doing much better because we have to. We want anyone to fill the job. We don't care about nationality, gender. Inclusion is a solution to a massive problem. It's still a male-dominated industry and a good old boy network. I heard quite a few of those comments. But we are inspired to do better. We're not exclusive, but we're not being actively inclusive. So we're not excluding people, but we're not being necessarily proactively inclusive. Here's some more good news. We are raising awareness as an industry. This was the second year of Inclusion Week. How many of you participated in Inclusion Week last year? Many of you, how many don't even know about Inclusion Week? Raise your hand. There's a Construction Inclusion Week now that DPR and Turner and a bunch of contractors got together and created. The first year there were 1,000 companies, now there's 5,000. We're seeing an increase of women coming out of construction management and engineering and staying in the industry. We need to keep them. We are being more intentional about the people we hire and promote. We've broken through some of the Latino cultural barriers. This is a large contractor making this comment. Craft are wearing translators during warm-ups, translators during meetings, and thinking what is their first language, so being mindful that not everybody's first language is English. We are getting down into high school and middle school to recruit into the trades. So here's some of the challenges. It's exciting when I walk into a 30-person meeting and there are other women in the room. What a great idea, right? More black people in the room, but not even close to representing society. We're seeing some really good projects, some that don't do it at all. Once again, the owner has the power. You have influence over the inclusion of our industry. We've come a long way, but we have a way to go. A lot of unconscious bias in the industry, still an uphill battle for women, constantly being second-guessed. Constantly being second-guessed. Depends on what level. Look at the field level, more inclusive for ethnicity but not gender. Office is more inclusive for gender than ethnicity. On the trade side, I don't see intention. I've never seen a female foreman, rarely a female supervisor. Women entering the trades don't see role models. They only think gender and race, disabled adults are overlooked. We are not going to the locations of diverse people to find them. We don't notice people being ostracized. Still shocked to go out and find companies that don't accommodate women. I have to tell you, when I became chair of the board of Brinkman Construction 3 years ago and went out on my first job site and said, "Where's the facilities for the women?" I got very embarrassed reaction to that the chair of the board did not have a woman's facility to use on site. They're used to me now. The biggest challenge is that the industry as a whole doesn't attract people, so diverse people aren't interested in us. Recent graduates don't think it's an industry for them. Women, African Americans, we just flat out don't pay attention to it. Why would they want to work in a good old boys club, see graffiti, not have the right facilities? Look at the numbers. We keep putting programs out there that are partially implemented. We don't have childcare to help mothers work construction hours. And comments like, "Shouldn't you be home feeding your son?" when she's running a meeting are still out there. That someone had recently heard this comment, "Shouldn't you be home feeding your son?" So this is a really interesting comment I received. Aggression is worse than rude. I will sit through locker room talk, but when people raise their voice, curse at me, that is where I draw the line. This is a woman speaking. The last time I was physically threatened at work was 2001. He came over the table. And now it's happening again in the last couple of years post-COVID. Maybe more stress in the environment. I'm being cursed at by clients, physically threatened. Maybe it's just the projects I'm on right now. Unfortunately, one of my calls last week was a new task force in Australia because we had 2 severe incidents of sexual harassment at the gas conference. And I do quite a bit of consulting in gas over there. I do think what's good for women is good for everyone. I hate to keep referring to the AI session, but you all had so many good things to say. And one of the things they correlated was care and respect. And I think that's what this is speaking to, right? Care and respect and people feeling like they belong in our industry so that they stay. People are not clear on what inclusion is. It means different things in different countries, much more than gender. So we really need to have those conversations. What does it mean that everybody feels like they belong in our industry? The challenge is that a lot of our industry is highly experienced, tenured. When you bring in more diverse groups, it can challenge those of us who have been around for a long time. This was someone who's been around for a long time saying this, which can be a turnoff for these new people who will only run into that wall once or twice. We should be motivated to do the right thing for people. It makes our businesses successful. We need to understand the true power of inclusion for diversity of thought, for better solutions. This was an interesting quote. Debated about putting this in, but I decided yes, I would. It's a traditional culture. The business is designed by men for men, and we can't see the forest for the trees. This is actually a man talking. Culture is killing off those you've got. The younger they are, men 35 to 45, they are leaving. They're going to, overworked. People are a commodity. Not that the leaders don't care, they don't know what to do, so they don't do anything. They lack vision and creativity, vulnerability, all the stuff that's needed to shift to a more humanized culture. The machine is never ending, cash flow machine, project driven, no vision of the industry as a whole. I love the construction industry. I mean, I've been in the construction industry for 40 years, so I just want to make that clear. When I love the industry, and we can do better. It's a combination of that. One of the things I like to do, because I sit on the Construction Industry Culture Task Force for Australia, they actually put a woman, an American woman, in charge of their Construction Excellence Award last year. I was the first woman to chair their judging panel. They give one award to one construction project in Australia. No pressure as a judge, right? But in Australia, the Construction Industry Culture Task Force has convinced government to invest millions of dollars in shifting the culture of the industry, and the CEOs of the largest construction companies sit at the table with academics, with government. Almost every project is 6 days a week in Australia, and they're doing research on how to shift to 5 days a week. They have 3 pillars: time for life, well-being, diversity, and inclusion. So I'd encourage you, the UK, they've developed a culture standard that they're asking contractors to sign on to. The UK has created a culture standard for construction. Let's create our own culture standard before somebody inflicts this upon us, right? That we want people to be well. We want people to have a life. Gab Trainer, she is the chair. She's an amazing woman. She sits on several boards in Australia. She has also been on my podcast. So if you want to learn more about what the Construction Industry Culture Task Force is up to in Australia, feel free to go listen to Gab. She's amazing. Okay, so I've been asked to write a book. I've been asked to write a book by Wiley. Wiley is a big publisher here in the United States. They asked me to write a book on women leading in construction. It's very flattering. I'm 87,000 words. That's what I was actually doing on that beach, was writing my book. 87,000 words into this. So I added some questions to this year's study about women in the industry. I hope you'll humor me with just a little bit of what I learned. I asked every man and woman to name women they admired in the construction industry. And then I went and interviewed them too. Some people with 30-year careers could not come up with one name. Not even me. I was like, well, you could say me. I have been around for 40 years. I am a member of the National Academy of Construction, one of 400 members here in the US. Not one. I'll have to get back to you on that. Some people introduced me to amazing women leaders. They said, here, I'll email you a list of 6 of them. So it was really, there was nothing in between. They either couldn't come up with one name or they emailed me 6 names. And that speaks to, what are we present to? Comments like a woman must be a tough cookie to survive in the industry. I would agree with that after 40 years. Women can also use the system. I'm not sure what system we're using, but that was an interesting comment. Hard to get a woman to transfer globally. What is their spouse going to do? So we've just kind of given up on global transfers for women because of their spouses. Having 2 daughters makes me more close to it. I want them to have every opportunity. Lots of discussion about having empathy when you have daughters. The unique challenges, some are societal, like raising a family. There are roles like superintendent, inherently male because the job responsibilities, early, nights, weekends. Unconscious bias creates additional steps we women have to take. When I was president of Continuum Advisory Group for 5 years, I was continually asked if we were a woman-owned business. And I would say no. And the next thing they would say is, well, why did Mark and Clark hire you as president? Seriously. Maybe because I'm the most qualified person to be president? No, we're not a woman-owned business. That's unconscious bias at work. We have to work twice as hard to be taken half as seriously. A woman has to do better than a man to move up. I actually had a man tell this to me 7 years ago. If I meet a woman executive in construction, I know she's exceptional, because if she's mediocre, she's going to be chewed up and spit out. We have different communication styles. So I put this quote in. I actually already have a book. It's called The 8 Steps to Being a Great Working Mom. I have a TEDx talk about it. I wrote it because of the things people said to me. I traveled every week until my kids were 7 and 8. Every week on the plane, someone would ask me, who watches your kids when you're gone? I started saying, you know what? I put them in the trunk of my car with a little food and water, and so far it seems to be working out just fine. Every week. I was a 1K with United. Oh my God, you fly 100,000 miles and you have 2 young kids. I received this message on LinkedIn from a senior vice president, Kevin Sears, probably 3 years ago, Dr. Gagel. I am Dr. Gagel. Sometimes I forget. I went back at 50 and did a PhD. I am Dr. Gagel. I just wanted to say thank you for connecting and that I really enjoyed your book. I came across your TED Talk on LinkedIn and learned of your connection to both construction and, okay, I just bought a place in my hometown of Kansas City, so I got to just give a little cheer for the Chiefs. It was the right read for Women in Construction Week. There is also Women in Construction Week. It is the first week of March. It coincides with International Women's Day. I want to be the most empathetic and supportive supervisor I can be for the women on my team. Your book and my discussion of it with my wife helps to reinforce my mindset and leadership choices. Do you know how great this message made me feel? I asked him if I could repost it on LinkedIn anonymously. He said, repost it with my name. And now I've gotten to know him. He's really a remarkable leader at J.E. Dunn. So what do we need? We need strong women leaders, someone to get up there and lead. We need to reach out to everyone in an unbiased way for the talent. We need organizations to be more intentional about active recruiting, for it to be a strategic imperative driven by leadership and driven by owners, to shine a light on it, call out bad behavior, get everyone on the same page, not just women, for people to be treated the way they need to be treated as humans with respect, to take a chance more often and lead by example, to set goals for college recruits, be more intentional, be transparent on everything we do. I want to share another podcast. This is Sam Clark. He's a third-generation contractor in Lansing, Clark Construction, the Little Clark Construction. Sam is the chair of the Agency Diversity and Inclusion Committee. I also sit on this committee. Now you can see why I'm not doing very much consulting, right? Sitting on a lot of committees trying to lift up the industry. He tells a remarkable story of how their inclusion efforts propelled them from 200 million to 500 million in 3 years, and they have a 99% engagement score. And if you link into me, my LinkedIn post from last Friday is a podcast with Bill Proudman, who started White Men as Full Diversity Partners, which is the training that Sam went through to really understand what inclusion means. He's a really remarkable person. I threw in a couple of slides that I think are important for all of you around mentorship and sponsorship. I've had a phenomenal group of mentors, people who have helped me build the technical skills and help me learn and adapt to different ways of influencing. I wouldn't be the person I am without mentors. Can I tell you, I'm about to turn 60. I have 4 mentors. I have 4 mentors. They're such an important part of my life today. People who pulled me forward when I didn't want to go forward. My best mentor was the one who would hold me accountable when I was not at my best. Most of my mentors and advocates have been male, as they are the majority of the leaders, as have mine. My mentor is always willing to challenge me and provide real-time feedback. I love when someone gives me feedback respectfully. I can do something with that. Mentors have played a huge role in my entire career. Sounding board. If I mess up, I can ask, how do I fix this? I have my own board of directors. My friend Cheryl Campbell ran gas operations for Xcel Energy. She's on the PG&E board. She calls them her board of advisors too. The guys close to my age felt threatened. Those old enough to have daughters my age were very supportive. Interesting comment, huh? Mentor someone. And allyship. Allyship is a word I'm hearing a lot more recently. What does it mean to be an ally? Male allies have played an important role in my life. I made it 3 decades in the industry because there has always been a man who would take a chance on a girl, see me as an asset to the industry. My boss was a key ally in positioning me to take over the role he had previously. Without his support and enablement, it would have been much more challenging. My first superintendent, I love this story, when I was a project engineer, was an ally. I worked next to him all day and outworked everyone. I asked questions and he had my back, treated me differently because I was by his side, and he can tell I wanted to learn. My ally was always fighting for me, saying she can do it. My biggest enemy was my own self-talk. Men lifted me up, convinced me to do things. Allyship can be hard woman to woman, as society tends to pit women against each other, makes it competitive. We see only one seat at the table. I think that's changing. I just hosted a dinner of 18 women construction leaders in Kansas City 3 weeks ago, the CFO of J.E. Dunn, the head of people for McCown Gordon, to create that camaraderie amongst women. All but one ally was a man. Women that could have been allies turned out to be competitors. Someone said, "Stop treating her like your daughter. You need to treat her as an engineer." I love that quote. I actually interviewed my first boss at FMI for my book because I thought I was imagining something. Lou Bainbridge. Anybody here know Lou? He was with FMI for years. Yeah, we got some hands in the back. When I joined FMI in 1994, I was 29. We had contractors. Lou would say, "Gretchen's coming out to do your strategic plan." And they would say, nope, Gretchen's not coming out to do my strategic plan. A man's coming out to do my strategic plan. And do you know what Lou said to them? And I just interviewed him because I thought I made this up. He said, "Well, you're going to need to go find another consulting firm because Gretchen's part of our team." In 1994, he said that. That's allyship. That is, he said, I asked him, "Why did you say that?" He said, "Because if I backed you to hire you, I needed you to back you as a part of our team." So some final thoughts. Sponsorship is always also important. I had a phenomenal sponsor. They advocate for you, understood what I did and how I did it. Coaching is important. We had another great breakout on coaching. Today, I've been working with a coach this past year. I still have a coach. I love my coach. And colleagues. A colleague asked, "What are your aspirations?" Not high enough, you need to think bigger. So inclusion is about all of us supporting one another, right? So once again, the time for change is now. That big whatever that thing is, I haven't decided if it's a rock or a dome or something. It's coming. We need to solve the talent problem. So it's been really great to once again have the opportunity to interview leaders in the industry, to lift up the things that are being done well, and to continue to challenge us. As I said, I love the construction industry. I wouldn't have stuck around. You know, I say I love men. I've been married to 2 of them. And but we can do better when it comes to embracing artificial intelligence, when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to inclusion. Once again, I would encourage you to find my podcast. This is what the logo looks like. I have 125 episodes. I put one out every 2 weeks. And I try and lift up interesting stories. A job site in Melbourne, Australia that have 53% women, from the trades through the office, 53% women on a job site. So with that, I think we have just a little bit of time for questions. Thank you very much.
We do. Let's give it up for Gretchen. Thank you so much, Gretchen. We do have a couple of quick questions, and the first one I saw walking up here is comment on the LGBTQ community that is growing in our industry, both at the craft and professional levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about inclusion, it's everybody. Someone talked about a transgender person on their job site, maybe not being completely certain that transgender's needs were being met, but that community is definitely a part of our industry, should be respected for whatever choices they make individually. I think it's really important. I'm actually, I don't share this a lot, but I'm outnumbered by lesbians in my family. I'm like one of only 2 heterosexual women in my generation, so I have a lot of empathy for what people in that community go through.
The other question is, what kind of resources would you recommend if we wanted to do a better job in inclusion? Are there resources other than podcasts, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. Construction Inclusion Week is amazing. There are toolboxes for every day of the week to have conversations around inclusion. And all those, if you just Google Construction Inclusion Week, all those resources are on that website. The culture of care. I actually asked this question of the audience 2 years ago, how many people have heard of the culture of care, which a lot of contractors have signed on board with that. And the AGC has lots of resources. If you want to go learn about unconscious bias, because a lot of this has to do with little things, like I was in a breakout and we were talking about tradesmen, and that language is tradespeople, or if I'm introduced as chairman of the board, I respectfully say I'm the chair, the chairwoman, or the chairperson. You have 3 other choices. So it's just understanding unconscious bias. And Udemy, has anybody heard of the website Udemy? They have a lot of courses on things like unconscious bias.
There are several women here who have made it to upper level management or even the top of their organization. What do you think are the key attributes that they possess that allowed them to get here other than just mere perseverance?
Perseverance is what I was going to say. And, you know, I left the industry for 8 years.
Yeah.
I came back in 2013. Greg was reminding me I came back with a different last name. In fact, Jan Tuckman wrote an article about me in ENR so people would know it was me. How many tall Gretchens are there walking around construction, right? I think that I have chosen my battles. A lot of it is like water off a duck. But there are certain things that happen and you have to stand up for yourself. You have to love the industry. My girlfriends, when I came back into the industry, they said, "You work in construction." "Wow, you work in construction?" I said, "Do you want to charge your cell phone? Do you want to drive on a road or sit in a beautiful hotel or have a baby in a hospital or send your kids to school? It's all constructed." We so humbly build and maintain the assets of civilization. That's what I believe about the construction industry. That's the rock stars that we are, and I want us to be respected, and I want people beating down our doors to come help us with all of that. So I think the women that I most admire love the industry. They choose their battles. They work hard. I will tell you that you do have to work incredibly hard to be respected. And when people keep asking you, why did Mark and Clark hire you as president, you just have to make a joke sometimes and say, you know, I don't know why they hired me as president. Oh my God, I'm president, you know.
Good, thank you. Any questions from the audience? We have one right here. Hold on just a moment.
Thanks, Gretchen. I'm interested in that term, the green hushing that you mentioned. Just want to bring it back also to the big rocks in the jar. We hear a lot of goals for 2030, which in my mind translates to 6 years from now.
Right.
Or, hey, the project that I'm currently working on and planning right now as an owner will be completed in 6 years. So any of my execution strategies need to start now. Or we hear about goals for 2050, innovation, inclusion, ESG, and that's 26 years, right?
Right.
So I look around this room, we're all going to be retired and gone. What do you think about that? You know, in terms of, it feels somewhat abstract, like the goalpost might be moving out. What kind of sense of urgency should we have on these things?
I think we should have a lot of sense of urgency. I mean, when you think about sustainability, we are projected in Australia, I think it's within 15 years to lose 40% of our beaches because of global warming. And as I showed you, I really love the beaches of Australia. And thinking about our planet, I think that comment about how do we measure it, like we all decided how we were going to measure safety. Remember way back when we didn't know how we were measuring safety, and then CII, and this is how we're going to measure safety, and we're going to be able to show progress, like that job site in the AI thing. We need to understand how to measure progress and how to talk about it in a common platform. And I don't think green hushing is the right thing to do, is just to shut up about it because we don't think we can do it. I think we need to be really transparent and really collaborative in how we think about the solutions. So is it 30 or is it 50? I don't know, but let's how do we measure progress? And how do we all be on the same page as far as how we measure what progress looks like. Yeah.
Great. I think there's a question back here. Yes.
Yeah.
Chris.
Gretchen, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for just raising that awareness. One thing that I see in construction, and I just wanted to go ahead and get your take on it, people have strong opinions
Yes.
about all kinds of things, don't they? How do you make it more of a informed, strong opinion, and how do you change that mindset to go ahead and get to a point where people understand what you're trying to tell them?
Yeah. If anyone has read the book Getting to Yes, I think, is one of the best books on negotiation, but it comes to this point of what's the common need that we're trying to solve for. We might have different opinions about how we get there, but they tell a story about two chefs fighting over an orange. And they split the orange in half and they go off to do their thing. And then when they look at each other, they realize one needed the rind of the orange and one needed the inside of the orange, but they didn't stop to discuss common needs. So what are the common things that we're trying to solve for? How are we more trusting and less of this big poker game? And I don't know how we become more trusting other than to say, this is what we're all trying to accomplish. How do we roll up our sleeves? And yes, we're going to have differences of opinion, but we're a civil society. We can discuss those and come hopefully to the best solution. I don't know if that answers your question, Chris, but.
With that, let's show our appreciation to Gretchen. We appreciate her coming all the way from Australia. Thank you so much.